phases within our project. We have 5 phases. We upskill teachers to become UN accredited climate change teachers. We then deliver a cross-curricular climate curriculum, and we all know we need evidence, hard data to prove that we are delivering tangible results. I'm going to hand over to Tim, and he's going to give you all the goss.
Thank you very much, Melanie. So today's press event, we want to look at actually generating some really simple action that can drive quite measurable results. There are a lot of initiatives around the world that focus on climate change, but when we focus on climate change, it seems to be more talk and less measurement. So today, Educate Global is active with over 225,000 teachers worldwide. In the coming year, we're going to be focusing on phase 2 of the project, which involves rolling out new programs and initiatives that actually help drive a carbon footprint reduction in schools and take that sustainable mindset and behaviour outside of school and into the community around them. As it says up on the screen, we have over 1 billion children around the world and currently in education. We have an opportunity to teach sustainable behaviours and change future generations for good. So this is something that we're really passionate about. There are 4 parts to Educate Global. The first is to upskill teachers and to equip them with the knowledge they need to deliver climate change education successfully before we help them support and roll out climate change lessons into the school. It's really important that climate change education is included as a golden thread into everything that a child studies. Teachers and schools around the world do not have time to add climate change as a separate subject, and nor should it be. It's part of everyday life. So when we're teaching maths, when we're teaching English or science, we want to make sure that sustainability is included within. Our third phase and what we're focusing on today is all about initiatives that can encourage that sustainable mindset and start changing the way we think when it comes to sustainability. Before when we focus on phase 4, we're looking forward to measuring that, reporting that back to UNITAR, as well as the wider public. So the Sustainable Diet course is a part of our equipping climate change teachers with the knowledge they need that we're very much looking forward to including. The Sustainable Diet course was created by UNITAR and UNCC Learn with Danone, who are sponsoring that. So it's great to have some really fantastic partners on board who know their knowledge and are able to do that. The course is going to focus heavily on equipping students and teachers with the vital knowledge they need. As we say in the title of the press release, a sustainable diet isn't just a meat-free diet, it's much more. In fact, actually, having vegetarian meals, such as in the UK, if we take a tomato out of season, is almost as bad as having cheese that's locally produced when we look at the carbon footprint emissions that go into that. So when we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about human health, we're talking about locale and where it was produced, and we're talking about the carbon footprint emissions that go within. So why food? Why is food so important? Well, food is one of the biggest carbon factors and carbon footprint emitters globally. In fact, food production contributes approximately 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, while livestock is responsible for 14.5%. And food production as a whole occupies 40% of the land we use as human beings. We can even take that further. We've got freshwater uses that we use, and species such as fishing and livestock are also at risk because of our human activity. Now, when we go to the supermarket, and I think we're all guilty of this, myself included, we sometimes look at the food that's on the shelf and we don't really think about it. We think, well, what's going to be easy to cook tonight? What's going to be easy? What's going to be good? And we just go and we pay for it. That's the beauty with modern day society, is everything is very close to us, and we don't really have to work that hard to access the food we need for many of us. So this course and the approach we're bringing is really trying to turn the clock back a little bit when you had to think about your food. It wasn't long ago you had to think where your food would kind of come from, how easy it would be to access, and even seasonality. So we're fortunate that we've been able to develop the technologies to preserve food and use them all year round, but we do need to think about what the cost is and how we can change things for the future. So alongside the initiative that we're going to talk about very shortly, we're also going to be delivering this with the sustainable lessons around sustainable food. So this is going to be delivered in lessons such as food tech, biology, chemistry, and across the wider school curriculum. So already Educate Global is supporting educators across the world in delivering that, and we're really looking forward to rolling that out. Phase 1 is going to be launching this year as a pilot trial in several schools around the world, and that's going to be entirely about rethinking food waste. If we look at schools at the moment, and we're primarily focusing this pilot on schools in the United Kingdom, school dinners are a really common topic. Children will kind of go and they'll have their food and their lunch meals at school, but what's happening is schools are producing food and then expecting students to come and buy it rather than cooking to demand. And that's leading to excessive amounts of food waste. Quite often they're cooking things that aren't going to get ordered, aren't in demand, so that's getting thrown away. It's also costing a lot of money and taking food away from those who potentially need it. We're going to be looking at how we rethink the consumer choices we make to consume food in a sustainable manner, thinking about the foods that we're actually going to cook, perhaps going for foods that we don't even traditionally use. In the UK, we might be swapping things out like pasta and rice for something like lentils or quinoa. So these are foods that are around us, but actually when we've checked and we've had a look in schools, our students and our teachers as well aren't actually aware of or how to cook them. So let's take a look at some of the data. Lamb, beef and cheese are some of the top 3 foods for carbon footprint emissions. In fact, for every kilogram of food, lamb produces 39.2 kilograms of carbon footprint emissions, which is equivalent to driving 91 miles in a fuel-based car. That's a lot. And what we need to get to the point of is when we're actually considering what impact that has and how we can monitor it. So our Sustainable Eating Initiative is really encouraging children and everyone to be able to look at these foods and think about the various factors that go into that. Not just carbon footprint emissions, but also things like water consumption and rainforest usage. So it's a really balanced approach. We're not trying to say go vegetarian or go vegan or anything like that, because a balanced diet is important, and quite frankly that will be met with a lot of hostility. But we do want people to explore the choices and options they have around them. Our third phase, and I think this is really exciting, is getting smart when it comes to producing food. So the picture that's shown there is actually something called hydroponics. Hydroponics is something that's become quite a common topic when we look at smart cities and how we're going to meet the evolving needs of our population in the future. We're expected to reach increased food demands quite substantially by 2050, so we do need to get smart. In urban countries, actually the space to produce food is being quickly diminished. We're replacing it with housing and with properties that we need to sustain our way of life. So we're going to be looking and trying to encourage into schools sustainable ways of producing their food staples. Things like tomatoes, lettuce, cucumbers, so that also students are getting practical and hands-on approach opportunities to try that, so that when they go into the future, that's going to be carried on with them through into their adult life. So exactly what does this initiative look like? It's very simple. It's going to be delivered in the form of an app that's available to schools, part of the Educate Global program, so they will have a UN accredited Educate Global climate change teacher already. And we're going to start simple. The first step is simply to get them to order their food in the morning so that a school knows what to cook and to what quantity. This is done really to help achieve 2 things. First, to cut food waste in cooking what needs to be cooked, and second, to actually help schools streamline that operation. When we look outside the matters of climate change, that actually takes away from school budgets, so we're hoping this will really benefit on 2 stages. In the second phase, we're going to actually be breaking down what goes into that meal. So we're going to be coming up with something called an Earth score, which is going to look at several factors. It's going to look at the carbon footprint emissions that go into that, the water consumption, and things like rainforest usage. We want to put this so that students can explore what goes into their food and make well-informed choices. Over time, we're going to actually break this down so they'll be able to see their choices, how that's changing over time, if it's changing. And then we want to be able to measure that as a whole. There are 32,000 schools in the United Kingdom. That's a lot of pupils in education. So we're really looking forward to see the behavioural change that happens there. So over the course of this year, we're going to be running a UK pilot trial, and that's going to be targeting 2,000 schools. And we want to aim for 4,000 metric tons of carbon footprint emissions reduced and evidenced. So we're going to be working for about 6 months to collect just natural habits, what students are ordinarily doing before we start introducing things like Earth Score and breaking down what goes into food to see if this changes. So that's going to be a really exciting opportunity to see how children respond when they're given the information they need to make informed choices. So when we actually break down and look at the app, it's going to show several options. Sustainable meals, an easy way to see what their school is offering them that we think has met a sustainability score. We're going to come up with new meal suggestions each day. It's going to break down the Earth Score, which we just talked about, and allow the streamlined ordering process to actually implement this in schools. It's really important to say that implementation is key. You can have absolutely great initiatives, but we've worked hard to communicate with educators around the world, especially in the UK, to figure out how this can be efficiently implemented in school. If it doesn't, it simply won't work or take off. Over time, we want to actually break this down to see a sustainable score, and that's going to show each pupil's progression towards achieving sustainable meals. Now, to show you what we're targeting in our pilot trial, we're not looking for them to go full sustainable straight away. It needs to be a gradual change. What we're aiming for is to swap out one perhaps less sustainable meal choice a week for one really sustainable meal choice a week. And that itself will generate substantial evidence and measurable change. We're going to also provide actionable tips and advice. So if a child is going for the same meal every day, forgetting what that meal is, that's not a healthy diet. Healthy diet is varied and it's balanced. So we're also going to be providing tips like that to make sure that children are getting the nutritional value they need. And we're going to provide a food diary, which is going to be great for educators to check that their children at school are actually getting the nutrition they need, as well as parents who want to check on their children's progression, and students who are taking an active interest in the world around them. Over time, we also want to categorize this. So we're going to be introducing, and this is going to apply to the whole of Educate Global, 3 categories of awards. So the Bronze Award, the Silver, and Gold. At its very basic, the Bronze is going to be focused on making sure that children have access to climate change education, and these processes are starting to be adopted. At the high end, the Gold Award, they will have set targets to ensure that they're reducing their carbon footprint emission by a set amount each year, which is really going to improve the net sustainability of a country worldwide. So before we go into a Q&A, I just want to end with a short statement. And I think that we can either spend the next decade talking about the things we can do and the next century justifying why we didn't, or we can act now and change our sustainable behaviours for good. The programme I've just laid out before you is really, really simple. It's not going to cost a lot of money. It's not going to be making drastic behavioural change that we think is impossible. It is simply telling people what we no longer know. We go to a supermarket picking what's off the shelf without ever thinking about it. So we're simply making information available. So I would now like to welcome any questions from the audience, and thank you very much.